Welcome. We are so glad that you're with us today. We are focusing on STEM and PBL, so science, technology, engineering, and math, and project-based learning. We are glad you're joining us and so happy to dive into this topic that's so important to our children today and tomorrow. I'm Vera Vanderkoy, and I'm joined by Angela Fitzgerald. We are glad to have you. We are passionate about STEM experiences for young people. We love working with others, and we're just glad we're in this time together to kind of think about these two pieces, STEM and PBL, and how they come together and overlap and help us when we're working with young people in a classroom setting, out of school time setting, even with our own children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews. So we're the STEM Connection. We are a nonprofit that focuses on that empowering and educating of others in those principles of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And we're all about the hands-on experience. I'm going to show you a short video just to help you kind of see how that looks.
The STEM Connection is really a place where kids can just come to learn and explore and make connections with the world around them.
In our farm space here, we have day camps and we also have field trips. And those run year round and can be flexible depending on what time of year we're in.
This place was the first place I really got to explore nature. Like my backyard when I was growing up, it didn't really have many woods behind it. So I got to come out here and explore all these woods and these big open fields and just see what nature was really about and all the fish and birds and things like that.
Kids are free to be in nature and see what they see and ask questions and learn along the way. And it's just a really great informal learning opportunity for kids to come and be themselves and gain skills and experiences that will help them be successful now and hopefully into the future.
All of the activities that we have here are very hands-on, and it gets their minds working and thinking and seeing how things are actually done versus just reading about it. So I really love that aspect in that everything is hands-on, everything the kids are involved in.
I've had a blast at the STEM Connection. I've made a bunch of memories.
This place has been a blessing for me. And if you want to check us out, you can check us out on our website. You're always welcome. And we'd love for you to come on down.
You guys should check us out online. There's always a space for you. So.
And when we think about that STEM and how it looks, we are kind of focusing in our programs, and we have a variety of programs. This time that you're with us today is in that professional development opportunity. And in addition, like you saw in the videos, we run day camps at our farm space. We have field trips. Also, we do STEM Quick Wins, which is a virtual opportunity that we'll share a little bit more about. It's a free resource later on in our webinar today. Our STEM Future Leaders is our mentoring program targeting middle school and then high school and college age young people. And then we also have STEM family kits. And this is a kit that we put together for families to help them move forward in STEM as a unit and come alongside them in that space. So these are some of our programs. And when we think about those programs, we want those programs to come alive, and pictures tell our story. And we love to think about how are those programs coming alive for our young people? How are we setting up an experience where they're the learners, they're the doers, they're the ones that are discovering, there's the ones that are failing and succeeding. And today, when we cross that STEM and PBL together, we're going to see how we can make that happen. And we'll share what we know, and we'd love to hear more about how you've gone through this experience as well. And now I'm going to let Angela share a little bit more about how STEM looks when we think about it in that STEM and PBL space.
Yeah, so obviously we are a STEM education organization, so we're really focused on those disciplines within STEM. And though we know it's important to bring these different disciplines together and have learning opportunities that incorporates multiple of these areas at one time. We also know it's important to kind of have an understanding of what each of these disciplines kind of means on its own. So at the STEM Connection, when we think about science, that's when we're thinking about that study of the natural world. What is here on our earth and in our universe? Why is it there? How did it get there? How do things change over time and interact with each other? So any of those experiences where we're just kind of thinking about the world around us and what's there and why it's there is our kind of approach to STEM. As we think about technology, we have found that oftentimes youth have kind of a misconception that technology is only electronic technology, because that's kind of our experience recently, that it's the computers, the tablets, the cell phones, video games, that sort of thing. But we have a more broad approach to technology in the way that we think about it. At the STEM Connection, we like to think about technology as any tool or machine that's been designed by humans to meet a want or a need to help us solve a problem. So yes, it can be a piece of complex technology, but it could also be something very simple, a pair of scissors, a knife or a fork or spoon. So there's a broad context that we can use when we're thinking about technology in terms of it being just kind of anything that makes our lives easier. Engineering is thinking about that process that we can use to help us solve problems and to create something new or to make improvements upon something that exists. So we'll talk a little bit about kind of that engineering design process in a little bit, but that we go through, a series of steps when we've identified or are working through a problem that can kind of help us solve that problem in some way. And then math being that language of numbers and shapes and quantities that helps us communicate about things in our world more accurately or with more precision. So if we can take a piece of something and describe it using the shape words and using some tools to give it measurements, it's going to give us a better understanding about that item. So math is used to help us communicate and share more information about things in our world. So though thinking about kind of those STEM disciplines and those different pieces that come together, that then leads to, how is that going to happen? How do we learn about that science, technology, engineering, and math? And it's through these STEM practices. If you notice here, we have a bunch of verbs kind of listed within each of the disciplines that kind of make sense. As you are studying the world around you, here's some things you might be doing to help you gather that information or to find out more. And kind of the same with each of those columns there. And what we know is that during our STEM experiences, we are trying to find opportunities to have youth engage in these actions and trying to pick things from various columns here or from the different disciplines and kind of bring it all together to really have more of an impactful experience for those youth. So kind of thinking about the STEM disciplines, thinking about the STEM practices, and then one other piece that we really think about as we are preparing our activities and programs and experiences is that idea of helping to prepare students and youth for today and tomorrow. So thinking about the future, what sort of skills along with those STEM skills are going to help them be able to, join the workforce and have what they need to be successful. We know there are a lot of opportunities for individuals that have the right skills, those being, STEM skills and these skills here. These happen to be the employability skills standards for us here in Indiana, but a lot of states have something very similar where we're thinking about kind of that whole child and how we can help give them and help them develop the skills that they are going to need to help them be successful in the work that they're doing in the classroom and in their lives right now, but also as they kind of move forward and take some of those next steps to those next steps in education, or as they seek jobs and join the workforce. One final piece that helps us kind of bring this all together. This is a tool we use at the STEM Connection. It's called the Dimensions of Success. And these have been identified as the factors that help to create a successful STEM experience or program. So we have some factors that speak to the learning environment itself. How are things organized? How are you utilizing your space? What space do you have to work with? That sort of thing. Then there's other factors to think about as we're thinking about what the kids are doing. What sorts of participation do they have? What sorts of roles are they playing in the learning experiences? How are they engaged with the activities? Who's involved in what capacity? Then we think about the STEM content itself, kind of that STEM knowledge. So what is it that we're hoping the students are going to learn or get more knowledge about or have more opportunities to practice? And then how do we know when that's happened, or how do we know then what those youth have gained or learned throughout that experience? And then kind of that last piece speaks a little bit to that workforce, or that kind of whole child development piece. How are they developing relationships and working with others? How are they making connections to the world around them? And how are they kind of sharing what they know or what they feel interested in and maybe passionate about to help guide the learning experiences that they get to participate in? So we kind of bring in all of these different pieces to help us as we are kind of planning and thinking about the different experiences that we would like to provide for the youth that we work with. As we're looking at this, the dimensions of success here, Vera, is there one that you see that's kind of jumping out to you as being kind of particularly important or top of mind as we're thinking about some of our programming right now?
I think that relationships one is really important. And we've heard that term connection before content, and just the power of that. It's so easy to want to jump in and start sharing information and getting right to the activity, where we know it's so important before that to set that stage where that child feels safe. They have that connection to someone in that learning space. They have a relationship of some sort. And how do we make that happen, even in a very short period of time? How do we help that child feel safe and have that connection before they get to the learning? So I've been thinking a little bit about that space. I also have been thinking about it, even in that workforce development and employability skills, how important it is to have that relationship with someone else before you go beyond and start working together. And how do you make that time when there is so much to get through in the day, but just the importance of it? So I always like looking back at this. It just helps me kind of refocus and also kind of go, what's the area that I'm noticing we might need to work on? What's an area I want to get better in as a teacher or educator? And then even from a programmatic standpoint, from a larger state or place. So I always enjoy seeing these dimensions. Thanks, Angela. And now I'm going to kind of move in to thinking about PBL. So we've kind of laid the groundwork with STEM. And really today we're thinking about those connections too. We're thinking about how STEM and PBL connect, and in a way make it easier for you as you are educating and empowering and creating experiences for young people. We want this to be something you can take away with and also go, we're already doing good work. We can just connect some dots or be more intentional about something. Or I'm ready to go a little deeper too. I want to really, flesh out some PBL experiences in the next period of time for my students. I want to think about that cross-curricular connection and see how I can pull in more. So we just want to connect those dots in our time together, and connecting STEM to PBL. All of a sudden you realize there's a lot of possibility there. Project-based learning is an instructional methodology, and it really helps us in that experience where we're helping a child learn, apply their knowledge and their skills. And there's 4 components of it that we have kind of broken out when we think about a positive PBL experience and how it can be defined. That connection to the real world, meaningful to youth, that cross-curricular component, and that hands-on opportunity. Angela, is there one here that kind of connects with you right now?
Oh, I definitely think that connected to the real world. There's so many things, kind of going on, and kids are more connected than ever with kind of, they have opportunities to hear about different events and things that are going on. And I think if we, have some opportunities for them to think about that and explore the things that they might have questions about or are interested in. We really see that, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of those examples later on today, but just really that real world connection. I know in my experience working with middle school students in the past that, they're really starting to find their place in the world and thinking outside of themselves a little bit more. So any of those opportunities where they can kind of really connect and see how this is real and how they can make an impact, I think is really empowering and impactful for those students. So that's the one that I'm kind of drawn to right now, and why I think these STEM and PBL experiences can have a great impact on kids.
Yeah, I think that relevance is so powerful. I agree with you. And taking time to build that relationship to figure out what is going to help that relevance come through. What is it that for that child, this experience is going to feel important, I think is such a wonderful place to kind of start and kind of connect. So thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. That PBL piece, when we think about that process, we think about processes in education landscape, and there's a lot of processes that we like to try to bring alongside a child in their learning experience. We also know that our brains are pattern seeking, and they like process. They like to understand what happens next and how I move forward. How do we go from here to there? So the more we can help kind of define that, even in our own learning experiences and teaching experiences, and then set that up for that young person that I'm working with, the more they're going to be able to start to bring that into their own experiences as they start to learn more and become lifelong learners. So that PBL process is in a lot of ways iterative. It can continue, and we've seen that happen where we've gotten through the whole process and then all of a sudden they want to move into something else. And that is just the most exciting part about a PBL experience, is it might lead to something you never even thought, but it's leading in the right way because it's coming from the youth you're working with. And as you get more comfortable with working in this space, you're able to see how you can make it that cross-curricular connection. That's not possible with everything, but a lot of times young people will have a lot of things they're interested in learning more about, and then kind of helping them frame it so it fits into what you have to do in the classroom or in any experience that you're leading with young people is really the key. So when we look at this PBL process here, this is really about what the teacher does before they even start. They kind of get a handle on, how do I want my students or the young people I'm working with to be introduced to this opportunity, this project, this relevant situation, this problem? How am I going to kind of set it up for them? Then they think a little bit about, how are they going to get a chance to learn more about it? I set up the problem, the experience, the possibility, and then I want to give them the tools so they can dig deeper and learn more. Once they've had that happen, then they kind of move into that create and design space. So what do I need to do to set it up so that they're ready to jump into that space when they're ready? And I'm kind of pacing it out and thinking about it over a timeline. And then that last piece there, in this process, that present, before it kind of goes back into being iterative, that presenting, who are they going to present to? Who is it going to be real for them to present to? How is their ideas or whatever they've learned in this process, how does it become validated? When a young person can present to an important other, it validates that learning experience. It makes it important. And we have seen this in different capacities where we've had young people present to a principal or to a larger group of stakeholders, or sometimes it's to peers, younger peers, whatever it is, that piece just makes it important. It makes all of this learning important. It makes it more than just me in front of my book with my worksheet. It makes it me in front of my book with the worksheet, now presenting that or leading it with others. We also know that when you teach something or share something, you become an expert. So we're really setting our young people up to be experts in something that it's possible those adults or other stakeholders may not know as much about. And how powerful and amazing is that? So this is that PBL process kind of broken down in that manner. I will say for the teacher, there's a lot of kind of pieces you want to think through before you jump in. And there's a lot of work ahead of time. But what I think is exciting is once you've done this work ahead of time and you kind of get into what the students are doing, you're almost coming alongside them in a way that you're learning together. You know, the beginning piece is really important, that setting the stage, that preparation. Educators know that it's the before work that takes a lot of time and thought, but then once you get in, it is amazing just to see the light bulbs turning on and the possibility happening. So that really idea of setting up that process ahead of time, helping them understand processes of how we learn. There's other processes in education, you know, in that cross-curricular situation, you might have like a writing workshop where that's another kind of process, right? Where you draft and then you draft again, and then you might have your final, but then you may draft again. Scientific method, that's another process where you're working through to solve a problem. Engineering design process. These processes, again, are so important for young people to work through, and PBL is just one more of them and can connect really well in that way. So if that's how the teacher sets it up, how does it look when we add the children in? So when we're looking at this and we see this space, I like looking at this because I can kind of see what it is. I'm thinking that on the left-hand side is really what the students are doing. And what the right-hand side is what I am doing as that educator, that facilitator, that adult in the mix. I've kind of set it up in my thought process ahead of time, working through the process and how I'm going to lay it out. And now I'm thinking about these other pieces as I connect the dots and I come alongside that child, that guide on the side, that one that's kind of leading them through those pieces. I see this, how it goes back to STEM, some of those practices that Angela shared, and that DOS, that dimensions of success, those dimensions, you can see a lot of crossover between what you're seeing in these PBL spaces, where what's that children doing on the left, and what's my role as an educator on the right, and kind of making sure those two pieces are kind of connecting, and then connecting back to that STEM space as we kind of look into it. And now I'm going to let Angela even connect some more dots for you between that STEM and PBL experience.
Yeah, Vera, you just set that up perfectly with thinking about kind of those visuals and then thinking back to those STEM practices, thinking back to those employability skills, thinking back to that DOS, and how a lot of those words that we're seeing are kind of being shown again and again. So we want you to we just want to reiterate that kind of wherever you are and what you're doing, you're probably already doing something that's going to connect with these processes. And then we can just take it a little bit further from there. So a few of the commonalities that really kind of jumped out to us as we were kind of exploring this and digging a little deeper is just that opportunity, both with STEM and PBL experiences, that kids have to have those authentic connections to the world around them, and thinking about kind of what's there and what's important and how they might be able to make an impact. That interdisciplinary approach where you're bringing together multiple different areas or different content silos and kind of bringing those together to have kind of a more all-encompassing experience. And that can be a lot of different content areas or areas that you're working with, and including even some of those what we might call our special area contents, the arts, like if they're creating a poster or a presentation, some of those visual pieces and that idea. So lots of different ways that you can bring in multiple different areas for a successful experience. And then just reiterating that, these types of experiences are really helping those youth develop skills and practice those skills that will help them be successful in those next phases or stages. So that PBL is just kind of that framework, kind of that guide, and then you can kind of fill in the details as they make sense. That can be STEM, that can be other content areas, but there's a lot that can kind of get brought together and grouped together as we have these sorts of experiences for kids. And again, we have quite a bit of experience with engaging in these types of learning experiences with kids. So on this side, we're seeing some pictures of some of the opportunities that we've had to really engage in some of these project-based learning experiences with some of the youth that we work with. So you can kind of see we have our outdoor learning space. So that just lends itself really well for kids to kind of being able to see, see what's out there and kind of make a difference in that type of space. But this can happen in all different spaces and places and in all different communities. You can find great ways to make connections to the community and the world around the youth that you're serving. So Vera, as you look at these pictures and kind of think back to some of our own PBL STEM experiences with some of our kids, can you elaborate on one of them maybe in particular and share a little bit more?
Yes, thanks, Angela. Up in that right-hand corner, you're going to see a playground. This was an outdoor playground that was put together. It's really an exploration station. We want it open for exploration where children can use that space however they see fit. And we will set up invitations to play in it. So we'll put different items in that space to see where they want to go next. But we wanted it very much open, safe, but almost like a blank canvas for opportunity to learn and play and be. And this is so fun to see this picture because this space before, I wish you could have seen it before. It was just a green kind of overgrown area. And we talked to our STEM future leaders. These are our middle school and high school students and college age. And we said, we have this space and we want to do something with it. We want to make it a inviting and open and a space for you to find new learning opportunities. And especially for some of our younger participants, we want you to help us set it up and make it so they want to be in it. So they kind of took that challenge on, and we had a young person in that group, Olivia. She sketched, she's very artistic. She had a sketch she was working on about what she thought we could do. So she made this sketch and then she brought it to the larger group. And they looked at it and they worked on it together and they refined it a little bit more. They made a list of what they needed. They kind of started to put out a timeline. They talked to some people to see if they could get some of the supplies. Then they set up their work day and they made it come together. And then they were able to present it to the young people that could actually use it and to our staff. Like, this is how this space is set up. This is what it looks like. So they kind of went through all of those stages in a very fluid and organic way. And it was really wonderful to see that project-based learning experience find itself. It wasn't as though we really knew this was going to happen. We gave them a lot of problems, and this is the one they kind of found themselves in that they wanted to solve. They wanted to solve what to do with the space. And they just took it on. It was really exciting. And even that picture now, just makes me smile. And a lot of these other ones, it reminds me there is so much opportunity and possibility. And how can I set that up? And sometimes it's a grand thing like this one on the right there, what I just shared. Sometimes it's a smaller situation. It doesn't have to be the all in all. It can just be a start in to what's going to happen to lead us forward.
That's so fun to think about that exploration station kind of and how it came to be, because now I can't even imagine, our farm space without it. It's just such a part of just so many of our different programs, and the younger kids love it. And, that I hope that all those kids take a lot of pride in what they did, because it's just been such an awesome addition to our space. And it was kind of all their vision. And that's really, really cool to see. So one more way to just kind of think about these connections between the different types of projects you might be working through. Vera mentioned this before, just those different processes that kids experience in throughout their schooling and their learning opportunities. So when we're thinking about STEM, we may have opportunities where we're focusing a little bit more on that scientific process and going through the steps of an investigation or experiment in that way. Sometimes we have that engineering design process where we're creating something new to solve a problem, and we have those steps. The geo-inquiry process, this is something that I became familiar with a few years ago. This is something kind of designed by National Geographic, and it's a way to kind of bring together some of the science pieces and the social studies or civics pieces and kind of bring that together. So I just took another way to kind of approach this. It's great for that upper elementary, middle school age. It aligns really well with kind of everything we're talking about today. And then we're thinking about, as we saw before, kind of that chart, that project-based learning process. And hopefully you can see here, as it's just kind of a little bit more obvious with those steps of each of those processes, but there are so many of those steps that are similar from kind of one process to the next. So we think that, as we kind of break it down this way, it just helps us be like, oh yeah, there's so many connections. So if I'm already doing an engineering project, how might I take that one step further with that project-based learning approach, knowing there's already so many similarities. So just wanted to take a moment to kind of have that big picture that, thinking about some of those experiences that you may already provide for those youth that you're working with, to see how it could be pretty easy to bring in, that additional component. Or if you already have some ideas about that project-based learning process or project that you might want to help work your students or the youth through, how can you bring in kind of a STEM component, knowing that those processes align in a lot of ways. We have some thoughts too. Like I said, we've done this a number of times with youth. So we have some thoughts and experiences for how this might look for you. How might you get started with this process if it's something that's a little bit newer for you? So Vera's gonna to kind of walk it through a few of the ideas or thoughts that we have about kind of places to get started. And then we'll talk about some more examples of some projects that we've done as well.
So we have a free resource that we know can be used to encourage project-based learning experiences. And it's a great way to hook that experience and move it forward, that intro. It can also be used along the way. And we'll kind of give you this little piece of information, then you can kind of think how that is. In the next couple slides, Angela and I are going to be sharing some activities that could stand alone, but what we have seen is the power of bringing them together. So that idea that already you might have activities in a unit or an experience, is there a way to connect them more intentionally to bring about that project-based learning opportunity? Just to frame it differently, how can I take what already I have on my plate and I know is important for me to be teaching, it might be required, can I shift it or intentionally look at it from a different lens? Can I look at through the PBL lens and find a way to make this experience work in that model? So this is a STEM Quick Win. This is a plastic bag bracelet. And our STEM Quick Wins are a free resource. Like I said, it's on our website. We have over 100 in our library, and they include the activity sheet on the left-hand side. They're in English and Spanish and in a PDF. Free, as I said, and then a video to go along with it. And they can be great for that intro piece. So I'm going to show that quick video. And I want you to think about it as I'm showing it. How could you intro an experience in that PBL space using this video?
Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm Taylor.
And today's STEM Quick Win is plastic bag bracelet.
Started.
Today's STEM Quick Win was sponsored by Corteva. Thanks for your support, and let's get started. Humans can produce up to 1,000 pounds of trash per year per person. Today, we're going to learn how to reuse a plastic bag to make a rope or bracelet or anything you want. To learn more about the content behind today's STEM Quick Win, check out the activity sheet linked down below. To start, Pause the video here and brainstorm a few ways you could reuse a plastic bag. Try to be as creative as possible. Today, we're going to reuse plastic bags by turning them into a bracelet. To start, you're going to want to cut the bag so it can lay flat on the table, and then cut thin, long strips of your bag. These strips are going to be used to make your bracelet. Next, you want to tape multiple strips together and begin to twist or braid them so they make a long rope. Once you're at the end of those strips, tape or tie the end together so the rope doesn't come apart. Have a buddy tie that rope you just made around your wrist, and boom, you have a bracelet. If you want, you can get creative by using those ropes to make other objects, like a jump rope or even a bag.
That's it for today's STEM Quick Win. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.
We would love to see the plastic bag bracelets you create and anything else you make, so please share it with us online. And thanks again to Corteva for sponsoring today's STEM Quick Win.
So that idea of using an experience, showing a short video, we like using video in really short spots like that, just to explain something short and quick, bring in an idea, something different than just me as the educator or facilitator, and then setting it up. So they get this opportunity to go in and start thinking about what are the problems in the world around me? You know, what are some things I want to solve? Maybe this trash situation is laid out before them. What could I redo to reuse, renew, recycle? How do I kind of bring that in? And then use this opportunity to create that plastic bag bracelet. It's a great way to set the stage, you know, so maybe we're moving forward then to think about how can I take this to a larger space? You know, it connects to Earth Day. It connects to a bigger problem with waste in my school or my surroundings. It's a starting point that kind of goes forward. And when we think about those connecting STEM quick wins to PBL, I'm kind of trying to think about that idea of this is a short experience, but how does it go to greater and deeper? You know, those STEM practices, those cross-cutting concepts, the content that I need to be including in my lessons. What can I do to cross those together? How can I make it relevant to the young child? What does that look like? You know, are there plastic bags in their space? I'm sure there are. Maybe they have this idea of outlawing plastic bags out of this experience. There's so many possibilities to go forward with it, but it just gets them thinking. It helps them think about projects going forward. It helps them thinking about careers. You know, maybe they want to take on this challenge and they want to think about how they can even do that from a legal perspective or from a scientific perspective. These are big problems that we have, but our young people just really need to be able to see that they have a piece of that. They can make a difference. They can make a change. You know, they have choice. And just having them start to think that way is a really powerful way to go forward. So those STEM quick wins are a great hook. And then another piece that we know is so important is to kind of think about that cross-curricular piece, that literature connection. You know, we have some great books that go along with this challenge, this plastic bag challenge, and they just lead to more discussion. They can lead to more opportunity. They can help us start to frame out that investigative part of the PBL process. And when we think about all those literature connections, you know, from that STEM and PBL space, because they're crossing over, we're thinking in that cross-curricular way, there are just so many books. And Angela and I both really appreciate books. If there's anything that we have at the STEM Connection, it's books. And we're always looking for more because there's just so much power in connecting literature to STEM and to PBL, that cross-curricular piece. Whenever we can bring that in, it helps not only the student, it also helps the facilitator or teacher in multiple ways. So we're looking at books all the time, you know, for those relationships, that relevance, that ability to find a purposeful activity, because they can set things up in a way that that PBL can be stronger and greater and make it even more worthy in my teaching style. Angela, when you look at these books here, is there one that jumps out to you that you could kind of connect to that PBL space, or you might be having a new idea, or maybe you already have done it in one of your lessons previously?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think something that I'm connected with here as I look at some of these great examples of literature is that that book, What If There Were No Bees? And I know that this is something that one of our facilitators was sharing a little bit about, who happens to be a classroom teacher as well. And she was sharing about how her class was just really interested in bugs. I mean, it's something that a lot of kids are really interested in, are just, bugs and those insects. So how could, she was thinking, how could I kind of use their interest in that particular content and kind of take it a little bit further. And so they were starting to think, and they learned a little bit more about insects themselves, and that led into to further information about bees. And ultimately this class kind of went through all of these steps of this kind of PBL process, because they came to understand, as they learned more about insects, they came to understand how important some insects are to our world, including bees and other pollinators. And then they felt like this call to action, that they wanted to do something, at their own school to help the bees. And they were thinking about what they could do, and came up with the idea of planting more pollinator friendly flowers, or having a pollinator garden right there on the grounds of their school. So they did some research. They looked around the school to find, a place where this could happen. They drew up proposals and kind of had some sketches, and were able to take that information to their administration and the PTO and say, we did this research. We learned about these insects that need our help. And here's one way we think that, our school community can help. And they were able to get, some more pollinator friendly plants, and a little pollinator garden area created at their school. And then, that's something that other kids see and, maybe ask questions about, and can just continue to kind of have that experience grow, and other kids become interested. And just how impactful that is, thinking about those third graders that were able to go in front of their administration and the PTO and share their ideas, and then see the end result, the product of that at the end. So I just think, you just never really know what's going to kind of grab, that particular group of kids' interest, that year or in that class. And, who knew that a little discussion about bugs could kind of lead to something that was so impactful for those kids.
I love that, that question, that interest, and then that connection to literature, and then how that literature was a springboard to something more. I know educators that a lot of times they know they're going to go in at the beginning of the year. They want to have a PBL project happen in the beginning, first 2 quarters, and they're not exactly sure what it's going to look like. They know the framework that they want to work through. This is kind of what our colleague did. She knew she wanted to have this happen, but she wasn't sure what it was exactly going to look like. She wanted to tie in, as many standards as possible, because as educators, we're always thinking in that frame. We're being held accountable, but she also wanted to see their interest level and, be able to say, what are the pieces that I can bring alongside them in this? I want to have some literature connections. I want to have some math connections. I want to have this piece. I want to have, that writing component. I want to try to be sure that I'm tying in those STEM pieces as well. So how can I know this is what I want to do, and then see where it goes next? And, having these opportunities to, use as a hook, some of the STEM quick win possibility, a literature connection or a question, these things just lead to the next stage. And I'm now going to let Angela kind of take over and share how, you can take some of these one-off experiences like that STEM quick win experience, a literature reading with a classroom that all of a sudden they have a gazillion questions. You just thought this was going to be a book. Well, it's much more. It led to all these questions. You thought, oh goodness, where do I go next? So she's going to give you some ideas of some longer units that we've worked on and been a part of, and thinking about how that STEM quick win, the literature piece, and then these other units can kind of tie together to help you in your own journey with that STEM and PBL connection.
Yeah, I even see on that list with some of those literature links, the Earth book, or We're All Connected, and just that importance of, there's so many. I know here in Indiana, there's a number of learning expectations that address that impact that humans have on the earth, or how we can respond to certain situations on the earth. So it just helps me kind of think about how we can, take that information and know we have that content that we need to kind of address, but how can we really do that in a way that is interesting and appealing and appropriate for the kids that we're working with? And one of those that kind of connects with that idea of that environmentalism and kind of how we're thinking about the environment is this Earth Day PBL challenge that we've done with kids. This was done in more of an after school challenge club format. So we were meeting with a group of students that ranged in ages from kindergarten through 5th grade. And we were meeting with them about once a week, for the course of the quarter, the semester, whatever that particular year was. And we were really trying to find ways, how can we find activities that are, appropriate for a variety of age levels to work on together that have a connection to their world. And we came across this Earth Day Makerspace challenge from Teachers Pay Teachers, and I know it's still available. And it really helps us kind of hone in on that essential question of what are some ways humans impact the earth. That could be positive, that could be negative, right? There was lots of discussion around that. And then, following it up, what are some ways to overcome those negative impacts? So it allows, those youth, it allowed them to kind of think about the world around them and their own actions or the actions of other humans and how those actions have kind of consequences, or what's the result, kind of that cause and effect that's happening there. And this is posed that ultimately, they were kind of thinking about the ways humans negatively impact the earth. A lot of kids kind of thought about trash and litter that they kind of noticed just, around the schoolyard or just on, along the road. And a number of them, so for this challenge, they created an invention that could be used to help overcome this negative impact. So a lot of the groups kind of thought about different tools that they could design or invent to help them pick up trash. And that's what you see there. And they went through the whole process, the engineering design process there. What was really fun with this activity is because we were working with kind of some of those upper elementary students as well. There was a budget component to this where there was fake money and each of the materials, cost a certain amount. And so they really had to plan out, how much they had to spend on certain materials, and you could adjust the criteria and constraints, but some of those math skills that they maybe knew, they were able to apply now, take that skill to the next level because they were actually doing some of that application. And at the end of our experience together, we were able to, invite their parents to come in and allow the kids to share, kind of have an opportunity to present their invention. And then this was right around Earth Day, which was kind of the motivating factor. And they were going to do like a schoolyard cleanup for at their school, and some of them were able to actually take their inventions and go out and use them to help them kind of clean up their own place and space, right there at their school. So this was a really great experience that had a great way to kind of lead into that Earth Day that kids kind of get excited about and know about. And also a great way to find some differentiation, right? There were ways that, it could be really well suited for those, kindergarten and 1st grade students all the way up through, I could even say middle school students kind of taking on this challenge in a way as well. So we love it when, we can find experiences that could, suit a lot of different age levels, and the kids just really loved this experience and came up with some great ideas. Another experience that we have is it was more with our STEM future leaders, so with middle school students. And this was a program that we had locally here in the Indianapolis area a number of years ago. It no longer exists, but the idea of this program was great. It was a kind of a call to action for groups of middle school students to really think about the world around them and, how they can make a difference. And each year with this program, there was a slightly different theme. And this particular year, they had kind of this ecological balance theme, thinking about the world and how everything kind of needs to be in check in order for everything that lives here to have, a healthy and safe environment to live in. And this got kicked off, all these kids. We had our teams of kids, and they were able to go to this kind of convention or workshop where there were representatives from different, companies that were connected to some sort of environmental factor. So maybe a natural resource or, a utility company or different environmental groups, just to kind of give the kids an understanding of, the different aspects of kind of the world around them when we're kind of thinking about those natural resources. And there was one group there that had a focus on food waste. And this group of middle school students we were working with got really intrigued by this idea. I think it was one of those, you hear the same, as you're going through elementary school, you kind of hear the same things. We can help the earth by turning off the water when we're brushing our teeth. And there's some of the same ideas. And then food waste was kind of, I think, new to this group of students, but it really got them thinking about how they witness this, in their own cafeteria, where unopened packages of food just got, tossed into the trash can, and that food waste can really be a problem. It's a global, problem in some areas, that there's a lot of waste created by food. And they took this on, they did more research, they connected with some professionals, and ultimately they wanted to help reduce the food waste at their school. Number one, through helping to educate others about the problem. And then number two, having kind of an action that could follow up with that. So they did research, they did some data collection in their own cafeteria at lunchtimes, tallying up how many, full milk cartons just got tossed in the trash can or unopened packages. So they did that whole data collection process, they did research, and then they were able to put together some presentations that they were able to go into the classrooms and share about food waste and what you could do with your food instead of simply throwing it away if you're not using it. They were also able to go in front of their administration and their cafeteria manager and establish a sharing table in their cafeteria for some of that unopened food for others in the room to either use or to then get donated to a food pantry that they had a connection to as well, instead of simply getting thrown away. So, it was really empowering for this group of students. Some of these kids that were involved with us here as, sixth or seventh graders we still work with as high school and even early college students, and they still talk about their involvement in this project and how, some of them then went on in high school and did more with it, beyond that, middle school experience that they had. So, just lots of different ways and opportunities to help kids feel empowered and have that impact on the world around them. And the next slide will show a few of the resources that we've used as well as we were just kind of gathering information. We know, there's only so much we can share in our time together today, but always love to point you in the right direction if there's something you want to learn more about. So a couple of these resources here just take you to more information about STEM and PBL. Kind of in general, and then some of them to have some ideas or have some additional information about projects that you might be able to set up or do within certain areas based on your own kids, the youth you're working with, based on the interests they have or what they kind of feel connected to in their current place in space right now. So I hope you utilize some of those resources to continue to learn a little bit more about PBL and see what's going to work for you and over this next period of time. Here's a little bit more just from the STEM connection in general. So we'd love for you to continue to connect with us. There's that link to those STEM quick wins, that free resource with some of those activities that might be useful as hooks or to kind of gauge interest. We have other upcoming educator empowerment opportunities throughout this year. And then there are others that are from some of the past ones available to you as well. And then we'd love for you to connect with us via social media or kind of on our website just to get the updates and kind of all that we have that hopefully you can take advantage of. So we are so thankful for you joining us today, and hopefully we will connect with you again soon.